Hello and welcome back to the Five Factors Podcast. This is Tal Prince, and here along with my co-host, co-founder, one of my closest friends in the world, the Right Reverend and legendary Matt Adair. Matt, how are you?
You know, Tal, I think the word that comes to mind today is glorious.
Wow.
I am glorious, Tal.
that I've never heard that response from you. So help me with that. So now as a therapist, I must dive into this. Tell me more about glorious, Matt.
It's real simple. My family loves the WWE, as we have established, and Bobby Roode, the glorious Bobby Roode, has recently debuted on the main roster. My 9-year-old is very excited about that because he loves the glorious Bobby Roode's entrance. It is, in fact, glorious.
And I'm woefully unfamiliar with any of that.
So there's no follow-up question on that because
no, you win.
It's over and done. It's rare that I can get the best of you in these verbal jousting matches, but there we are.
This is true. I'll next time in the next podcast be looking, friends, for me to quiz Matt about his Barclays Premier League knowledge.
Yeah, that's going to be a very short conversation.
Yeah. By the way, Zlatan Ibrahimovic just re-signed with Manchester United, so I'm in a good mood.
That's great. Yeah. Hey, Tal, you remember the eclipse that we had in August?
I do remember that.
So, future sponsor of the podcast, Dapper.com, which is where you gentlemen should go for all of your style help because, we all need style help. So, we're going to play a little game here on the podcast today. So, our friends at Dapper.com, again, future sponsor of the podcast, they have a list that says 20 menswear items that will not go out of style between now and the next U.S. solar eclipse in 2024. Okay? So 20 things that are going to stay in style for the next 7 years. So here's the game. I'm going to read the menswear item, and we're going to play a simple game of true or false.
Okay. All right.
So you're going to say true or false, whether this will still be in style in 2024. We're going to see how right they are. You ready?
Yes, because I hold all knowledge.
Well, that's part of the fun.
Okay, let's go. Let's see what this
Number
looks like.
1, aviator-style sunglasses.
I'm going to say no.
Okay. And I'm absolutely sure that that's because you're thinking about Top Gun, which is an entire podcast episode waiting for us down the line.
I don't think they need to hear my thoughts on Top Gun. Well, maybe.
Number 2, a navy blue wool sport coat or blazer.
Yeah, that'll still be in.
True. Okay. Number 3, the Oxford cloth button-down shirt.
That'll still be in.
Number 4, the single-breasted notch lapel above-the-knee wool topcoat.
Single notch. That's very specific. Single notch above the knee wool trench coat. I'm going to say no to that.
Got it. Number 5, the dive watch.
The dive watch will still be there.
Okay. Number 6, fitted but not skin-tight crew neck T-shirts.
Yeah, that'll be there.
Number 7, the suede chukka boot.
Boy, it's hard to beat a good pair of suede chukka boots. Let's just be honest. But, yeah, no, I'm going to say that's still going to be there.
All right, number 8, the single-breasted 2-button flat front with medium break navy suit.
No.
Number 9.
I'm gonna predict 3-button by then, unless you are a person of a different ethnicity, and then maybe up to 6 buttons on that coat.
Yes, as long as we don't go back to the Leo McGarry wide lapels from circa 2002.
Jack Nicholson as the Joker.
Exactly. Number 9, and this is an entire podcast episode in itself as well. Clean shaven.
I would love to see that, but I'm going to say no. That's not. Or are they saying that clean shaven is in style now?
So here is the description.
Yeah, help me with that.
Beards have been in for a while now, but being clean-shaven will never go out of style. It's professional and smart-looking.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
All right, number 10.
There will be, however, growth in beards continuing, and that'll be in that next podcast.
Yes, it will. Number 10, handwriting a thank you note.
Yeah, that'll still be there. For those
Number
with
11,
class.
straight or slim, but not skinny, dark denim.
Yeah, I'll still be there.
Number 12, a little bit of matte hair product. Not a lot, just a little.
Sure.
You have a strong opinion on that one, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Number 13, dark
For
brown
those of us
Oxfords.
losing our hair, we really don't care.
And that's going to come up in just a minute.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Number 13, dark brown Oxfords.
Dark brown Oxfords. Man, I feel like I'm saying yes to everything, but I feel like that's going to be there. I can't see dark brown Oxfords going out.
Okay. Number 14, the bald guy, Bic or buzz cut.
Well, yeah, I mean, only because the bald guy has few options.
Right.
I mean, what do we have, right? I mean, we don't have a lot of options. So
Well, and the description here is apt. It says, it's going to stay in style because the alternatives are just so terrible. Fellas, fire it before it quits on you.
the preemptive breakup, if you will.
Yes.
All right, awesome.
All right. Number 15, flat front, crease-free, slim, but not tight cotton chinos.
Man, I feel a strong comeback coming from the pleat contingent, which frightens me. So I'm going to hope that's not true. And just out of sheer optimism, I'm going to say, yes, the flat front will still be in stock.
Well, praise you. 16, being in shape.
Is it in style versus is it in, being in shape is going to always be in style. There are many things that are in style that nobody does, but
that's a whole secondary issue.
Yeah, it'll be
Probably
in style.
podcast.
Yes, no one's going to go, no, man, obesity, that's the thing.
All right, I'm going to combine 17 and 18 together. The crisp white or light blue semi-spread collar dress shirt.
Always in style. A classic.
Number 19, a simple minimalist dress watch between 38 to 42 millimeters in diameter.
Holy crap, that's specific.
We're bringing our game today.
Apparently, yeah. Sure, why not? Sure.
All right, number 20, to finish our game, merino wool V-neck sweaters.
Yeah, they'll be there. They'll be there.
I have to be honest, guys at dapper.com, future sponsor of the podcast.
Future sponsor.
This was a very good list, but you just kind of buried the lead here. We kind of just ended it with a whimper. But there's your list, guys. Dapper.com for all of your
But what were the answers? I mean, I answered many of them. I don't know if what were the answers of each one?
I mean, the answers are yes. I mean,
so every one of them is in
They
style.
are saying all of those things will be in style in 2024.
All right, I said no to what? What did I say no to?
I have no idea.
Well, I was right.
If you're listening and you were playing along with the game and keeping score, you just let us know. We'll
I was
find
good
out.
at least 18 out of 20 on that, if not higher.
Yeah,
but,
I was pretty strong,
yeah.
but that's because you are a style icon.
This is true.
Tal, this is the Five Factors podcast, is it not?
It is, and soon to be 6 with adding a factor of fashion.
Yeah, we're not doing that. That has been done by other pastors, and we're staying out of that game.
Please,
but we might
Jesus.
just give some breadcrumbs to help out any friends out there who need help.
Absolutely right. Absolutely.
So the Five Factors podcast, this is basically a conversation between the two of us and you, the listener, about a different way of thinking about leadership. And so when we talk about the Five Factors, we're talking about a framework, really helping you focus on the things that if you'll pay attention to these 5 things in your life, it's going to give you the best opportunity to thrive as a leader. So when we talk about the 5 factors, we're talking about mental health. We're talking about physical health, relational health, spiritual health, and vocational health. So when we talk about these things, we talk about physical health and strength. We talk about mental health being resilient, relational health being present with the people that matter most to us. We talk about vocational health and our ambition for the glory of God and the work that we do. And then the factor we're going to talk about today is spiritual health and talking about hope. And so again, the idea for us is all of these things are critical. All these things matter. They all kind of interplay with one another. But today, as we talk about spiritual health, it's pretty significant. It feels like it's the foundation for everything we do, particularly for those of us who are ministry leaders. But Tal, one of the things that we've talked about is, and really wrestled with, is this question about why aren't ministry leaders more spiritually healthy?
Yeah, and I mean the answer to that is, geez, more than we have time for, I know. But so, at a at a snorkeling depth today, why are ministers not more spiritually healthy? I think there's a variety of reasons, but at the end of the day, I think they're not spiritually healthy because you get into the pace, you get into the rush, you get into the race, and it is really hard not to start to believe at some point that you are actually doing this. It's something that I watch all the time, and a lot of my clients come in and that are pastors, and they'll talk about like, I have to do, and I have to do, and I have to do, and just kind of the tyranny of the urgent, but they're believing that they're actually capable of doing these things, and they want their people to look to them. They want to be Jesus for their congregation, right? And so they're standing there, and so now they must, by definition, if that's what they buy into, they must hide their flaws. And geez, we're not going to be spiritually healthy if we're hiding anything. If we are being deceptive at any level, we're not going to be spiritually healthy. We're not going to be spiritually healthy if we believe we're capable of doing anything. That it's my church, right? These are my people. This is my church, and this is what I'm doing here, and this is the way we have to go because I'm saying that. And so there's not a lot of spiritual connection. I think you and I are both familiar with, so many pastors. And I remember, do you remember Louis Drummond? Louis Drummond back at Beeson Divinity School, yeah. King Cat Louis. So I'm trying to not go on a sidebar here. But Louis said, and I don't know where he got this, and I don't know if it was legit or not, but anecdotally, I would say, yeah, this seems right in my experience now as a counselor, that the average minister spends less than 7 minutes a week in meaningful prayer for the congregation. Well, if we're not praying, if we're not plugged into our very source of hope, then we're not going to be very hopeful. If we're not very hopeful, we have zero spiritual health and believe it is on us to take care of everything on our own.
Right. And you mentioned hope, and that's really, as we've put together this part of the 5 factors framework, when we've said, I think that's what we're looking for when we think about spiritual health. If there's one thing for us to look at, and it's really hope in who God is and what God has done in the story that we call the gospel. I mean, this incredible news of here's what God has done, is doing, and will do throughout human history, and that should leave us with hope. And, again, what we've put together here is based on our experience. You mentioned you being a counselor, as a licensed therapist, me as a pastor, a consultant, an executive coach. And so we're bringing all that into play here as we think about spiritual health and hope. And then as we've really laid this out, we've said that, the elements involved in spiritual health include things like gratitude and rest and generosity. And so I want to talk about those with you. Let's start off with this idea of gratitude. So talk to me a little bit about the relationship between hope and the practice of gratitude.
Yeah, to go back what I said just a minute ago, to frame all that down into one thing, I think why we're spiritually unhealthy is self-reliance, the illusion of self-reliance. And gratitude, I think, is one of the quickest, most effective ways to kind of recalibrate where you are on reliance. If I'm believing that I can help myself, if I'm believing now, and we will tell our people all the time, the gospel is not pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, but we will live that way.
Right.
And so we're telling them a gospel, yet we're showing them a works-based life. And we're showing them this illusion of self-reliance, and that's hard, and it's incongruent, and that leads that leaves people in a very stressful place, and a very hopeless place. I think the best illustration I'll ever have on gratitude is, it's just my own experience in rehab. And yes, you heard that correctly. So I was in rehab, and so I'm sitting there on night one, and there's these check-in sheets that we had to fill out. And so here's this check-in sheet. So I got to go through all of these things, like, did you feel tempted to use your drug of choice today? Did you going through all these questions, and, do you feel anxious today? Do you feel angry? Where on your body do you feel that? A lot of great questions that I found zero value in on night one. So I'm sitting there, you turn it over, and there's one question on the back of this page, and then it says, what are you grateful for today? That question was not the question I wanted to see.
Why?
At all. Because it just infuriated me. And so what I wrote was, and I will not say what I wrote, because it may or may not have included much more colorful language. There's a reason I like Martin Luther. So what I wrote is, not a single thing. I was mad. I was furious. And I did not know at this point on night one of rehab that on morning one of rehab, you're supposed to turn those in to your primary therapist. And so
just thought this was for self-reflection. And,
yeah.
Right.
This is just for your own thing. And so I go popping into my primary group, trying to act as one who is in the wrong place, doesn't really supposed to be here with these people because they're really jacked up. And so, and I've trying to look like a helpful ministry guy. And clearly some clerical error has been made. I did not need to be sent here. So I go bebopping in there. And so my primary therapist says, hey, you got your check-in sheet? And I went with the classic dodge. I'm sorry, what? Which is
a natural place to start, but usually doesn't get us where we want to go.
You're just trying to buy time, right? And so
Yes.
I'm trying to buy time to come up with some explanation because I don't have a dog there. And I'm like, oh man, what am I going to say? And he goes, the check-in sheet, man, a little check-in sheet. They explained that to you last night. And I said, yeah, I didn't know I had to turn that in. He goes, yeah, you do. I said, okay, well, I'll get it to you tomorrow. And he's like, your room is like, 10 steps from here. Go get it. I was like, oh, crap. So I went and got it. And I very sheepishly walk into the room now and hand it to him. And he doesn't even look at anything on the front side of it. He just whips it over on the back, and he looks at the back. He goes, yeah, that's about right. And then put it back in the stack. And we were like, okay. But gratitude, as you go through the experience, of rehab this spirituality is a major, major piece of that. It's not the driver of that.
Right.
It's breaking down your illusion of self-will, self-reliance, the illusion of your own power, all of that, and kind of the illusion of my own independence had to be shattered and get to a place where I saw, holy cow, I am a totally dependent creature.
Yeah.
And in a country that celebrates independence, that's countercultural at its highest level.
Right.
And to look at, so my gratitude list, and they'll tell you, and I'll tell you, I do gratitude lists with my clients, and I can tell, are they getting better or not? Or are they working or not by how long their gratitude list is getting? If you want a quick gauge on where you are spiritually, sit down, do a gratitude list, and not in a pop culture secret or Oprah kind of new age, thing. And I know it's really in vogue now, the gratitude list, but it comes from scripture. All right. So don't let that they've cribbed it for their use get in your way of using a gratitude list. It is a biblical exercise. So sit down and start. If you want to gauge where you are spiritually, just look at how a gratitude list flows for you. Is it easy, or are you having a hard time coming up with things that you're grateful for?
Right.
And that's going to give you a real good sketch of where you are, a real quick dashboard of where am I spiritually. If your gratitude list is struggling, you're probably struggling spiritually. And so I would encourage you to do that. And and if you're having trouble, like I was having trouble, get really, really granular.
Yeah.
And so the first item on my gratitude list is oxygen.
Yeah, because if you don't have it, you're not alive.
I can't produce it for myself. If
Right.
you want to destroy your illusion of self-reliance, think where you would be without air that you cannot provide for yourself.
Yeah.
So I start there, and then I go into my cardiovascular system. Okay, so then I'm thankful for a nose that can breathe in the air and then process the oxygen in my lungs and then kick out the carbon dioxide that would kill me, and go through the body, and that gets into my bloodstream, and then that helps my heart beating, and that keeps my blood pressure, and go through that and see how dependent you are at a total level, and that there is a God, that there is a creator that is keeping you alive and providing everything you need to stay alive.
Yeah.
And you start going there, and then you start to branch out. It is a fantastic exercise. There are volumes and volumes and volumes now of research on the power of gratitude. But
right. And like
ahead.
you said, we're seeing it from, inside the church, outside the church. We're seeing it from men and women who are followers of Jesus that don't necessarily market themselves as Christians. I think of somebody like Brene Brown, who I think would fall into that category, where that's a significant thing that she, encourages people to practice. When I hear you talk about gratitude, I kind of see it as that hinge point between the outcome of hope and the reality of grace. And because it's going to drive you to that outcome of hope in God because of the reality of grace. Like anything and everything I have I don't have it because of karma. I don't have it because I worked hard. I have it because God has given this to me, even though I didn't deserve it. So how can I not have a sense of gratitude because of that? And if I have gratitude for that reason, then that should deepen my hope in God, right?
Absolutely. And it's a great exercise to do with your family. It's just a great thing to do. But I mean, start your day with a gratitude list. Sit down in your office whenever you get there, have your time, prayer, meditation, scripture, and then just sit down and write a gratitude list. See where you are, and just know if you're struggling with that, okay, that's a warning sign. Because what we're if we're spiritually healthy, we're going to be humble.
Yeah.
If we're self-reliant, we're not going to be humble. We're just not.
Right. Yeah. Not going to be grateful for much of anything. Yeah. And so you wrote a really good blog post that can help people, I think, take next steps through that. If you'll go to 5factors.net/hope, then you'll be able to go get access to that.
Because is it a backward slash or a forward slash? I always get confused.
I don't know. Slash. Y'all know what to use.
Try a slash.
Try a slash. And
listening to some Guns N' Roses, preferably.
Amen. So if you'll go there, 5factors.net/hope, then you'll be able to just kind of Tal walk you through all the factors that we're talking about today, all the elements of this factor that we call hope related to spiritual health. The second part of that, because we're going to talk about gratitude, but we also talk about the importance of rest. So let's dive in and talk a little bit about the connection between rest and hope.
Yeah. I think rest is one of these things that a lot of ministers, will all agree to their need for rest.
Yeah.
While all saying they're too busy to rest. I don't have time and I'm too busy. Yes, that would be nice. I would love to be able to rest, but I'm way too busy. I don't have the time. And what we create unintentionally, very often, if we're not resting, and if we're not resting and trusting, other people on, staff, if we're not delegating and multiplying leaders, if we're not really moving towards any of that, then it's all going to fall on us in this warped sense of self-reliance we have. And if we're doing that, we're building a very codependent church dynamic,
right?
Where I want everyone to depend on me. And man, I'm going to tell you, I know this address. I pastored a church and I pastored it this way. I didn't trust those underneath me to run with things, and because I had watched it fail. I had done it and watched them put things in the ditch. But they were young, seminary guys and trying to learn. And, but then I felt like, okay, I have to do everything. And so I grabbed the reins of control, which is what codependency is all about. It's all about control. I'm going to control either passively, which I have a PhD in, or I'm going to control through aggressive, being very aggressive. I'm going to be the really aggressive, threatening, smack talking leader, or I'm going to be the very passive, like, I wish you guys would just cooperate with me, leader. And like, I'm so tired. I wish somebody would do these things for me, but I can't trust anyone to do these things for me. And again, I have a PhD in that one. And so we build this dynamic, and then what the trap of it is, and you may be there as you listen to this. Here's a warning sign. If you are resenting the people whom you shepherd, you don't have enough rest.
Right.
If you are resenting the people that you are tasked with shepherding, you have them depending on you. And you are not pointing them to where their hope comes from. I look to the hills. Where does my hope come from? This is why hope is a barometer of spiritual health.
Yeah.
Who are you looking to? Are you looking to yourself? Are you looking to your staff? Or are you looking to God? Who are you sending your people to look to? Do you want your people to look to you to fix their problems, or your staff to fix their problems? Or are you directing them to God and participating with them in that, but pointing them to God? Or do you want the credit? Speaking of feeling glorious, do you want the credit for solving their issue? That's really tempting. And it's something that I will always struggle with, and as a therapist, and walking people out of addiction and walking people through that journey and watching them get better. It is so easy for me to buy the lie that I have helped them.
Yeah.
No, I haven't. I've been a vessel yielded to God, and God has helped them through me. And for that, I can add that to my gratitude list. So that's how it kind of flows. But if we're building that codependent dynamic, that's a danger place for us. And so the way out of that is to begin to delegate and trust. What is your level of faith in God to handle these things? And what is your level of faith and trust that God has called and equipped a staff with you? And how are you helping equip that staff? Are you shepherding your staff well? Those are all things we have to look at.
Yeah. Pete Scazzero in Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, which is a helpful book, he defines rest as embracing the limits of our humanity. Yeah. And the scriptures are really helpful, because I think it gives us two practices that I think really help us embody this practice, where we really do embrace our limits. We do recognize that God is God. We don't become God in our own lives and for the lives of the people that we lead. So simple, basic things like sleeping and making sure we're getting that 7 to 9 hours a night that we're supposed to be getting. And then the practice of Sabbath. And we can all preach on it. We all know that it's in the 10 Commandments, but that sense of taking an entire day to quit work and to pray and to play. And the scriptures really don't give a lot of parameters around that. It's really more about that rhythm. And so if you're thinking about this, I think that there's a rhythm when you look in the Hebrew concept of a day really beginning in the evening. You're kind of winding up your work, and then you basically hand it over to God, and then you wake up and surprise, he kept doing things while you were unconscious. And so that concept of, taking a night and a day from, sunset to sunrise or sunset to sunset 24-hour period where you're really focusing on those two things of time apart from the people that you are serving, to pray, to play, and to figure that out. And so that's just one of the things that you'll be hearing about more from us, because we think it's just it's a practice that isn't forgotten, but it has been lost. And in the end, we're really hurting ourselves as leaders because, what happens? We don't get enough rest. We don't embrace our limits. We try to work outside of our limits. And in the end, we end up resentful, not towards people, but resentful towards God. So there goes the entire concept of hope in God, right?
Right. And it's not so take your hands completely off, it's no, you have to be engaged. And I know, Matt, you are, great with productivity and talking through that. And there's a bunch of productivity systems out there, and we encourage you to try several and find the one that's right for you. I mean, you may resonate with, the 7 highly effective habits, or you may resonate more with getting things done, or you may resonate more with the old classic to-do list, and a day timer. You may dig that may work for you, or you may use a lot of high-tech apps for it. But I don't know if you're like me, but I can get really distracted by the shiny new tool. And then I want to spend a week learning how to use the tool that I'm probably not going to use, because so productivity has its limits, and recognizing those limits, as you just mentioned, is key. So we have to be developing leaders underneath us so that we can multiply more effectively. But we also, it comes down to shattering, breaking, and absolutely annihilating our sense of self-reliance. This to me is the ultimate of the flesh. This is really where the flesh lives, is self-reliance and pride.
Right.
And so,
and it's going to get applauded in the world around us.
Absolutely.
For being a hard worker and hustling and all those kind of things. And so I would say this, and I think it's a good, tie-in in terms of when we think about ambition and vocational health, and we do talk about productivity, that, it seems like God's productivity system is sleep, Sabbath, and work.
Pretty simple.
Right? I mean, if we're going to if we sometimes get confused by all the things to do within being productive, it just comes back to that. Are you sleeping 7 to 9 hours a night? Are you taking 24 hours to quit working, to pray, to play? And then for the rest of the time, are you working? So it's going to transform that. And again, I think out of that posture of rest, out of that sense of gratitude, as we kind of see hope rising within us, that should create a real sense of generosity in the lives of us as leaders. That there isn't a sense that we should be stingy with our time, our resources, anything like that. So talk a little bit, Tal, about the generosity as kind of the display of hope, that people should be able to see that we are hope-filled people and who God is because of the way in which we live generously.
Yeah. Generosity, I think for me, spiritual health, I just frame it up as a transition from selfishness to selflessness. When I'm being more selfish and self-centered, I'm not spiritually healthy, because if I'm selfish and self-centered, I'm also feeling self-reliant, and I'm absolutely, if I'm being selfish and self-centered, there's not a way in this world you could ever convince anyone that you are trusting God to provide for you. You're just not. If you are selfishly hoarding things and trying to get a hold of everything, or get your way, or get everything, exactly the way you want it, there's just not a way you're trusting God to provide what you need. You're just not. And so that's a sign. If you're not trusting God, you're not spiritually healthy. Okay. It's just, bedrock to the concept of spirituality.
Right.
So if I'm selfish, I'm unhealthy. But if I look at, am I being transformed into a selfless person? Because trust me, I could tell you all, and we could write blog post after blog post and do lots of podcasts on, here are the 7 things to do today to, try and be selfless. Good luck with that. I have no power. Again, if Jesus says, apart from me, you can do nothing, I kind of think he means that. So I have to understand that I absolutely am dependent on him, but I can trust him to provide for me, and I can trust him to act through me, and I can trust him and his resources. The simplest illustration is, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 of you listening have somebody in your congregation you are not particularly fond of?
No.
I know. It's a radical concept, and I can hear the protest, and my email will be filling up shortly with protests of this never happens. But you may be the Peter Pan out there that has a person in your church that you are not particularly fond of. Yet, we have to love those people, and we have to serve those people. Can you wash the feet of someone that you know doesn't like you either? Can you wash the feet of someone that you know has backstabbed you, has gossiped about you, has called for a vote about you? And the answer to that is, and I hear a lot of you already going, well, I could try. No. No, because it doesn't count if you're washing their foot with a Brillo pad to inflict pain. That doesn't count. The deal is, can Jesus do that through you? Yes. And that's generous. I think generosity too often gets associated with just money. Certainly that's a piece. Yeah. Are we generous with our resources in general? So that's my time, my physical resources, my mental resources, my emotional resources. Am I generous in giving with those? Right. If I am trusting in God and I know that God is going to provide for me what I need, and I'm also observing rest so that I'm not building that codependent thing. It's easy to get these two out of balance, so that I'm not just kind of creating a martyr syndrome out there that I'm going to be like, oh, I have to do everything, but that I'm trusting and I'm resting and I'm trusting God to provide for me the resources that I need, and I'm freely sharing those with people. Then that's what selflessness looks like. Yeah, and I'm telling you, when you're at that place, you will garner far more trust from the people whom you shepherd, right. When they see you being generous, but having healthy boundaries. Yep. But we can't do that. That's nothing that we can manage on our own. That is something that we have to continually bring before the throne and ask God to help us with that, and ask God to do that in and through us. Yeah. But if those things are happening, we got gratitude, so we got gratitude, and we're grateful for what's going on, and we're resting and holding boundaries, and people aren't depending on us, so we're not resenting them, then it frees up generosity, and we're in a much more selfless place. And that speaks more to the gospel than almost anything I know.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that happens for us, because I think when we think about generosity, we tend to think about time or money. And one of the challenges I think that exists for us is usually one of those is easier than the other for us. And that may change in different seasons. And where I think you really see the gospel and the work of Jesus build genuine hope in us is when we watch people who are generous with the thing that is most difficult to give up. So, for some people, it's real easy to write that check because they have lots of money. Right. For some people, it's real easy to give their time because they have it. And so look at the thing that's more difficult. For the person whose schedule is full, who has plenty of money, who has no problem writing the check, show me that the gospel is going deeper and broader in your life by how you're giving people your attention and being willing to give up your time. And for those of us who don't have a lot of money, but feel like we have more time, show me how the gospel is going deeper and wider in your life, and you're becoming more generous with the finances that you have been given, right? And so to me, what I love about all three of these practices, because they are practical: a gratitude list, Sabbath, sleep, expressing generosity in real tangible ways with our time and our money. Those things are all, they both help us grow and facilitate greater hope. But if they're going to be done right, then they're going to be coming out of the reality of an increased awareness of God's love for us that isn't deserved, that is grace. It isn't because we worked hard. It isn't based on our self-reliance. And that's really the good news of the gospel. So the gospel leads us to these practices that should facilitate greater hope in God, that should therefore give us a greater sense of the good news of the gospel and facilitate these things. So it does have kind of a flywheel effect. And so I think when you see those elements and you see those concepts of rest, generosity, and gratitude, and you put that under the umbrella of spiritual health and hope, it really is the foundation for what we're trying to help people with in 5 factors, right? Because if you're growing in those areas, then you can see how it's going to impact your work. It's going to give you greater ambition for the glory of God. It's going to, I think, give you more clarity, both cognitively and emotionally, because you're framing your perspective in light of who God is and what he's doing. And we can have greater confidence in that because we have the scriptures, we have history, we have our own story of God showing up again and again and again. That should take some of the stress off that causes us to get physically unhealthy. It should give us a greater willingness and desire to be present with the people that matter most to us. And so this is absolutely the bedrock of the 5 factors. And so if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, if you're reading the transcript, then we want to encourage you not to just kind of go, okay, that was great, and move on to the next podcast, move on to the next video. We want you to take action on this. That's why we created this podcast, is because, yes, it is a conversation, but it's a conversation leading towards grace-centered, God-dependent growth. Mm-hmm. And so here's what I would encourage you to do. We've created a resource, just an overview of all 5 factors. And you go to 5factors.net/overview, and you can download it. It's about 4 or 5 pages, and you'll get more information on the 5 factors, including spiritual health that we talked about today. And then we also created a really easy 10-minute way for you to assess where you are right now. So maybe you're listening to this and you're going, man, I'm knocking all this stuff out of the park. Maybe you're like, man, I feel like I'm probably spiritually bankrupt. I'm not healthy at all. Most of us are probably in between. So if you'll read this, it'll probably take 15 minutes of your time today to download this, read it, take the assessment, and then just keep showing up week after week after week. We have a new podcast episode that drops every week. You can go into the show notes for this episode. You can go to 5factors.net/5, and you're going to be able to get the show notes for this, all the resources that we talked about, the blog posts, the overview, be able to find everything right there. And because we want to make this available towards you. So again, we wanted to dive into this. Again, I love Tal's perspective as a therapist, and both of us with pastoral experience. And so Tal, again, thankful for the opportunity for us to dig into this. Any last kind of words you want to say as we roll it up here?
I think you've summed it up really well. I mean, I don't think I need to add anything to that, man. That's fantastic. I would say that if you are struggling in any of these areas, I mean, this is why we see, ministers burn out.
Yeah.
I really am convinced it's their spiritual health that's burnt. It's right here. Any pastor that I've ever counseled that is burnt out, if I ask them to do a gratitude list, theirs look like mine in the first night of rehab.
Yeah.
They're resentful and angry at God. I kind of have that Jeremiah experience. You seduced and raped me. It's that I'm tired of being the weeping prophet, and here I am. And, but they're depending on themselves, and so they're burnt out, and that may be you. And I know I've been there. Yeah. And so in addition to this, we would point you also to the soon to be available 5 factors tourniquets, maybe on dapper.com. But we'll have that for you. But I mean, this is a thing that maybe you are bleeding out spiritually, and this is what we're here to help with. And so if we can do that, this is just a real quick dashboard for you to take a look and see. So go look at that assessment, go through the website and see if this is a community of which you need to be a part, because we would love to have you.
Yeah, 5factors.net/overview. You can also go to 5factors.net/ask. There's a really simple form that you can ask us any question that came up for you during this. We will either respond to that directly. Sometimes we just get a ton of messages coming in. Once a month, we do a Q&A on our Facebook page that's live, where we're going to walk through every question that we do receive. And so feel free to send us over if you've got a question that you think we can help you with. Then we would love to be able to do that. So again, for Tal, on behalf of him and myself, we're really, really grateful for your time and attention, and really just wish you the best. We're excited about the opportunity to help you thrive as a leader, and consider this a real privilege. So look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Until then, God bless you. Have a good